My name is Lillian Ross. I was 29 years old when I learned how quickly love can turn into a logistics problem. I've always believed in clear lines. You're either in or you're out. You're either choosing me or you're choosing something else. There's no in between that doesn't eventually turn toxic. For 3 years, I believed my boyfriend was choosing me. We built what I thought was a solid life. I ran a mid-sized project management consultancy. Not glamorous, but stable. The kind of work that pays the mortgage on time and lets you sleep at night. Stability mattered to me. It still does. He used to say he loved that about me, that I was the ground beneath his feet. He, on the other hand, was more fluid, emotional, charming in a way that sometimes felt like mist. Beautiful, but impossible to hold. I told myself we balanced each other, that love didn't need symmetry. That belief lasted right up until the night before our wedding. The rehearsal had gone perfectly. The church smelled like polished wood and fresh flowers. Our families laughed together. The vows sounded right when we practiced them. Everything looked exactly like it was supposed to. After the rehearsal dinner, while our parents were hugging goodbye, he pulled me aside. I noticed immediately that he wasn't dressed to go home. "Hey," he said lightly, not meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up tonight." I blinked. "What?" He adjusted the strap of his jacket like it was suddenly fascinating. "It's just, my ex-girlfriend is in town. She reached out. She wants to meet for a drink." I felt something tighten in my chest. "For a drink," I repeated. "Tonight." "Yeah," he said quickly. "Just for closure. I think it's important before I start this new chapter with you." Closure. The word echoed in my head, hollow and insulting. The night before our wedding, the man I was supposed to marry wanted to drink with the woman he supposedly left behind. It wasn't a request, it was an announcement. I looked past him and saw my sister watching us from across the room, her smile fading as she read my face. I should have screamed. I should have cried. Instead, something inside me went very, very quiet. The emotional part of my brain shut down like a circuit breaker flipping under overload. What remained was the part of me that solved problems for a living. The woman who dealt with failed systems and bad data. This wasn't a relationship issue anymore. This was a catastrophic failure. I looked at him and smiled. Small, controlled. "Okay," I said evenly. "I understand. Do what you need to do." He looked stunned, then relieved. "Really?" he said, almost laughing. "Wow. Thank you for being so mature about this." He kissed my cheek, not my lips. A detail I would remember later. "I won't be late," he said, already walking away. I watched him get into a rideshare and disappear down the street. My sister rushed over. "Lillian," she whispered. "What the hell was that?" I took out my phone. "I'm not okay with it," I said calmly, "but I'm not going to argue." She frowned. "Then what are you going to do?" I unlocked my screen, already scrolling. "I'm going to fix it." She stared at me like I'd just spoken another language. The wedding was in less than 12 hours, and I had just enough time. By the time my sister finished asking questions, I was already 10 steps ahead of her. People mistake calm for forgiveness. They confuse silence with surrender. I'd spent my career cleaning up other people's messes. Corporate implosions, leadership failures, contracts signed by men who thought charm was a substitute for accountability. I knew exactly what happened when boundaries were treated like suggestions. You don't argue with the failure, you document it. Then you redesign the system. First, I needed data. He'd forgotten something crucial in his rush to feel like a misunderstood romantic hero. He'd insisted we share locations for safety a year earlier. A sweet gesture, he'd said, a sign of trust. I opened the app. There he was, a pulsing blue dot hovering over a dim cocktail bar downtown. The alibi. I actually laughed at that. Next problem, the ex-girlfriend. I didn't have her number, but I didn't need it. I knew her name. I knew where she worked. People leave trails when they want to be seen. It took me less than 5 minutes to find her professional profile. Her photo told me everything I needed to know. Confident smile, chin tilted slightly up. The look of a woman who believed every breakup made her the one that got away. Perfect. I downloaded a burner app and created a temporary number. Then I crafted the message carefully. Not dramatic, not desperate, controlled, urgent, flattering. "Hey, this is Hannah, one of his friends. This is going to sound insane, but he's falling apart. He's getting married tomorrow and he's miserable. He keeps talking about you, about how he made a mistake. He's at the alibi right now, but he's too scared to be honest. She's intense. He feels trapped. If there's ever been a moment to be honest, it's now." I stared at the message for a long second before hitting send. It wasn't manipulation. It was leverage. While I waited for a response, I started assembling my team. I called my father first. He didn't interrupt, he didn't swear, he didn't raise his voice. When I finished, there was a pause. Then he said, "Tell me what you need, sweetheart." I called my sister next. Then two bridesmaids I trusted, women who had known me long enough to recognize when I wasn't being dramatic. The reactions were immediate and unanimous. Shock, anger, loyalty. No one told me to calm down. No one suggested I forgive and forget. That's how I knew I was doing the right thing. The plan itself was simple. The wedding was not being canceled. It was being redefined. I drafted a message and sent it to every single guest on my side of the family. Urgent update. Please come to the church as planned tomorrow. The ceremony will proceed, but not as expected. Do not contact me. Do not contact him. Trust me. Sit on the bride's side and observe. Phones started buzzing immediately. I ignored them all. Next, money. Every vendor, every contract, every deposit. Most people think weddings are emotional events. They're not. They're financial ecosystems. And I was about to remove myself from the center. I froze payments, flagged cards, alerted my bank. I wasn't canceling contracts. I was declining participation. There's a difference. My phone vibrated. A new message. From the burner number. Is this some kind of joke? I'm literally sitting across from him right now. I smiled. Of course you are, I typed back. He's pretending everything's fine. Ask him if he's happy. Ask him if he ever thinks about what could have been. He won't admit it, but watch his face. Tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., Grand Cathedral. If you've ever mattered to him, that's where you'll be. I knew him. A few drinks in, nostalgia always won. And I knew her type. Being chosen publicly would feel irresistible. The final step was my disappearance. While my sister fielded confused calls and reassured everyone that I was handling things, I packed. Efficiently, quietly. I shredded shared paperwork, backed up my files, removed anything that tied me to the life I was leaving behind. Before I walked out, I placed two things on the kitchen counter. My parents' wedding album, open to a photo of mutual respect. And my engagement ring. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. At 3:17 a.m., my sister drove me to the airport. As the sun began to rise, my phone buzzed one last time. From the burner number, "I'm in. I'll be there." I turned my phone off. The wedding was about to begin. And for the first time, I wasn't the one walking down the aisle. When I landed, the air felt different. Warm, salted, unconcerned with human foolishness. I didn't turn my phone on right away. I ordered a coffee I didn't finish and watched the ocean like it might explain something to me. For 3 years, my world had been scheduled down to 15-minute blocks. Suddenly, time didn't belong to anyone. 8 hours later, curiosity won. I powered my phone on. The screen lit up like a crime scene. Missed calls, voicemails, messages stacked so tightly they blurred into a single accusation. My sister had sent updates through a private chat. I scrolled slowly, savoring the distance. "The church filled early," she wrote. His family arrived first, confused but obedient. Mine came next, calm, focused, sitting exactly where I told them to sit, on his side. No one contacted him. No one warned him. They understood this was not their secret to ruin. And then she arrived. The ex-girlfriend. She stood at the altar alone, adjusting her dress, scanning the pews like someone expecting applause. The officiant leaned toward her, whispering questions he didn't have answers to. Where was the groom? Why was the bride missing? She kept smiling, nervous, hopeful, trapped by her own fantasy. Then the music started. The doors at the back of the cathedral opened. He stepped inside. According to my sister, the moment he saw the woman at the altar was the moment gravity gave up on him. His stride slowed, his expression cracked. He looked around like the room might rearrange itself if he waited long enough. It didn't. Whispers rolled through the church. Someone laughed, sharp and ugly. The officiant froze. And then my father stood up. He'd coordinated with the sound technician. He held the microphone like it belonged to him. "Good morning," he said calmly, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "There's been a change of plans." Silence. My daughter was informed last night that her partner needed closure with his ex-girlfriend. She decided to be understanding. She believes closure is important. A pause. So she arranged for it to happen here, in public, in honesty. People shifted. Murmurs rose. "It seems this is the woman he chose," my father continued, gesturing toward the altar. "So on behalf of my daughter, I'd like to congratulate the couple." He sat down. Chaos erupted. His mother stood up screaming my name like it was an incantation that might summon me back into obedience. His father tried to argue with the officiant. The ex-girlfriend stared at the floor, realization crashing over her face in violent waves. And him? He didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, exposed in a way he'd never experienced. Not abandoned. Seen. I put my phone down and finished my coffee. For the first time since the night before, my chest loosened. I hadn't humiliated him. I had simply stopped protecting him from the truth. I stayed gone. That was the part no one expected. Most people imagine revenge as loud. Screaming matches, viral posts, public explanations that beg for validation. They assume the climax is the ending. They're wrong. The real power comes after, when you refuse to re-enter the chaos you just exposed. I spent the next 2 weeks exactly where I was supposed to be on our honeymoon. Alone. Unbothered. Anonymous. I surfed badly. I drank strong coffee in the mornings and something colder in the evenings. I slept without alarms. I didn't flinch every time my phone buzzed because it stayed turned off. Back home, the fallout was surgical. The venue attempted to run the card on file. Declined. The caterer followed. Declined. The florist. Declined. Contracts don't care about feelings. They care about signatures. His parents had co-signed. They learned very quickly what loyalty costs when it's misplaced. My lawyer handled everything. A clean, emotionless letter. Engagement terminated due to breach of trust. Shared expenses itemized. No threats, no drama, just facts. That hurt them more than yelling ever could. Apparently, he tried calling me from borrowed phones, friends' numbers, his mother's landline. At one point, he even emailed my work address, a message so long my assistant forwarded it without comment. I didn't respond. Silence is not cruelty, it's a boundary. When I finally returned home, the house felt like a museum exhibit dedicated to a version of myself that no longer existed. His shoes by the door, his jacket still hanging where he left it, the smell of his cologne lingering in rooms I refused to cry in. I hired a company. They packed his belongings neatly, efficiently, respectfully. I sent him the storage key in a padded envelope. No note. The town talked, of course. They always do. Stories mutated. People argued over details. Some tried to make me the villain. Too cold, too calculated, too proud. I let them. 6 months passed. The noise faded. And something unexpected took its place. Peace. Stop. Continue. Here it is. The final movement. Quiet, deliberate, and complete. Part 5. The woman they underestimated. 6 months is a strange amount of time. Long enough for the shock to fade. Short enough that people still whisper when they see you in public. I changed, but not in the ways they expected. I didn't harden. I didn't become bitter. I didn't swear off love or turn my story into a warning speech at dinner parties. I simply became precise. My life narrowed to what mattered. Work flourished. Not because I was escaping into it, but because I was finally working without emotional drag. I reconnected with friends I'd slowly deprioritized while building a future that had never been mutual. I learned how much space peace actually takes when it's allowed to exist. The legal threats went nowhere. They never do when they're fueled by shame instead of facts. His parents paid every outstanding vendor to avoid lawsuits. The number, I was told later, was catastrophic. Not financially devastating, but humiliating in the way only public consequences can be. As for him, he and the ex-girlfriend never became the story they thought they were starring in. He was furious when he realized he'd been used, not by me, but by his own indecision. She disappeared from town shortly after, her fantasy collapsing under daylight. He moved back in with his parents. The house, according to mutual acquaintances, was cold. The most telling moment came unexpectedly. I was at a hardware store on a Tuesday afternoon, debating between 2 identical paint samples, when I heard my name. It was one of my former bridesmaids. She looked like she'd just run into a ghost. "Oh," she said quietly. "Lillian, hi." We stood there awkwardly, surrounded by shelves of things meant to fix what's broken. "I'm sorry," she blurted, "about everything. We told him it was a terrible idea. He just assumed you'd get upset, cool off, and forgive him." I nodded. "He thought you were predictable," she added, almost apologetically. That word again. Predictable. I smiled. Not because it hurt, but because it finally made sense. They thought my love was permanent inventory, something that could be put on a shelf and retrieved when convenient. They mistook my boundaries for flexibility, my silence for weakness. They underestimated me. I'm seeing someone now. It's new, careful, honest in a way that feels unfamiliar but right. The other night, he asked about my last relationship. I didn't dramatize it. I just said, I was supposed to get married. On the day of the wedding, I decided to go on the honeymoon alone. He laughed, shook his head, and said, "That's the most sensible and sane thing I've ever heard." Maybe it was. But sometimes the healthiest decision looks unhinged from the outside, especially to people who benefit from you staying small. I didn't orchestrate revenge. I made a decision. He showed me his past mattered more than our future. So I gave him exactly that, a future with his past. And I walked away with my dignity intact.